use a certain image.
Okay, good.
I
Okay.
would say similarly, I would say less academic maybe
Mm,
uh, than some of the earlier stuff, more rooted in the everyday experience of people.
huh. But not that wouldn't be true of Williams, right?
Right.
I mean, he's very much rooted in the everyday experiences of people, you know. But yeah, compared to somebody like T.S. Eliot,
Yeah.
Wouldn't be true of Frost or Whitman
it
either.
wouldn't be true of Foster
Yeah.
Whitman. Yeah. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. I mean, definitely for thinking of Stevens and Eliot, this is true.
Well, and echoing what Leslie says, it's a little more narrative in that way. Um, in a sense that it's easier to go along with him. Um, but
Okay.
that's neither good or bad. It's just different.
Okay. What else?
Seems to be a little less structured. I mean, I know there was free verse earlier, but seems like less rhyming and metrical structure, a little more rambling.
Yeah, okay. Can you talk about that more? I mean, I wouldn't use the word rambling, but what other kind of structure or kinds of structure are coming into place? Just really kind of a question for everybody. Just look at what you're seeing on the page, the
The
first page
visuals,
at Rungate. I'm sorry?
the visuals, you know, just how the pattern on the page.
Okay, so there's
The
new,
longer lines and short stepped lines. I noticed it especially in the I might be a little step behind you all, but in the middle passage, um, well, that was almost like a dialogue, I think.
hmm
I
Okay.
missed your session last time, but
Yeah. Yeah, good. So this is a really important development. There's much more of a kind of free form composition, right? We're not looking at, I mean, and any generalization that you can make is going to be, somebody's going to say, but so and so does so and so. Okay. But what we're seeing in Robert Hayden's poems, some of them, not all of them, is this kind of composition that's woven of many voices juxtaposed. It's a collage-like composition. So we've got, for instance, in Rungate, which I'm going to read to you in a minute, we've got bits of things that are quoted that are juxtaposed against each other. And in the juxtapositions, a lot of energy is released. So juxtaposition is a super important element in poetry because, just like when you're rubbing two flints together, there's going to be sparks that are created. You're going to get sparks from the way things are put together. And then Julia mentions also freedom with things like spacing, tabbing in patterns that are created, visual patterns, run gate, run gate, run gate. Same word repeated 3 times, but tabbed in differently each time. Or O mythic north, O star-shaped yonder Bible city, reverse tabs. So we get a kind of almost like a musical composition on the page.
I,
Go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say a lot of these with the dialogues I saw performed on stage with people reading out loud and the different voices.
Yeah.
They're they're not talking to each other, but they're passing the baton back and forth, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean you actually did see these performed?
No, in my head
Look at
when I
that.
read it. And when I read it, it was
I see. Yeah.
it had this it has the visual changes like the running like the stair stepping down run gate, run a gate. But to me, it was like watching something that ought to be performed out
Yeah.
loud. You
Yeah.
per
Yeah. And in fact, next time when we get to Sterling A. Brown, I gave you guys a link to watch a musical performance of one of his poems. And it's really, really cool. I can't even wait for you to see it. But okay, so yeah, so all these things are things to look for, okay? So I'm going to read you Run Gate, Run Gate. Runs, falls, rises, stumbles on from darkness into darkness, and the darkness thicketed with shapes of terror, and the hunters pursuing, and the hounds pursuing, and the night cold, and the night long, and the river to cross, and the jack-o'-lanterns beckoning, beckoning, and blackness ahead. And when shall I reach that somewhere morning and keep on going and never turn back and keep on going? Let's just talk about that just to start out. Grammatically speaking, what is that?
It's a run-on sentence.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna,
not even a sentence. It's not even a sentence, but didn't you feel out of breath like a
Yeah,
person who's running away? It was just this, I felt like, your heart beating and you have to keep going. You have to keep going.
yeah. Unpunctuated. You have to keep going. Absolutely. You're out of breath trying to read it. Not as out of breath as the person running, but rain falls, rises, stumbles. So rain runs, falls, rises, stumbles on from darkness into darkness and the darkness, you know, and it just keeps going. It's quite brilliant. It's not letting you rest, just like the runaway can't rest, the run gate can't rest. Okay. And the night cold and the night long and the river to cross and the jack-o'-lanterns beckoning, beckoning and blackness ahead. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely
And there's
terrifying.
no punctuation. There's nothing. He's not letting you stop.
That's
He's
right.
not, he's giving you no cues to stop.
That's right. That's right. Sure. Because if you stop, if you're the runaway, if you stop and the lanterns are looking for you, you're dead. You're returned
Right.
to slavery.
Yeah.
Run gate, run gate, run gate. Many thousands rise and go, many thousands crossing over. O mythic north, O star-shaped yonder Bible city. Some go weeping and some rejoicing, some in coffins and some in carriages, some in silks and some in shackles. Rise and go, or fare you well. Do you guys remember back in the day, Odetta, the folk music singer Odetta?
Mhm.
yeah.
Remember she sang this song with her huge, enormous, deep voice, No More Auction Block for Me. Do you remember
Yep.
that?
No
So,
more, no more.
yeah. And then No More Driver's Lash for Me. And the song, the spiritual is Many Thousand Gone. If you see my Pompey, 30 years of age, new breeches, plain stockings, Negro shoes. If you see my Anna, likely young mulatto, branded E on the right cheek or R on the left, catch them if you can and notify subscriber. Catch them if you can, but it won't be easy. They'll dart underground when you try to catch them, plunge into quicksand, whirlpools, mazes, torn into scorpions when you try to catch them. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. And then the next line, and go home to my Lord and be free. North Star and Bonanza Gold. I'm bound for the freedom, freedom bound. And oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. Run gate, run gate. Two, rises from their anguish and their power, Harriet Tubman. Woman of earth, whip scarred, a summoning, a shining, mean to be free. And this was the way of it, brethren, brethren, way we journeyed from camp to can. Moon so bright and no place to hide, the cry up and the patrollers riding, hound dogs belling in bladed air. And fear starts a murbling, never make it, we'll never make it. Hush that now. And she's turned upon us, leveled pistol glinting in the moonlight. Dead folks can't jaybird talk, she says. You keep on going now or die, she says. Wanted Harriet Tubman, alias the General, alias Moses, stealer of slaves. In league with Garrison, Alcott, Emerson, Garrett, Douglas, Thoreau, John Brown, armed and known to be dangerous. Wanted, reward, dead or alive. Tell me, Ezekiel, oh, tell me, do you see nailed Jehovah coming to deliver me? Hoot owl calling in the ghosted air, 5 times calling to the ants in the air. Shadow of a face in the scary leaves, shadow of a voice in the talking leaves. Come ride on my train. Oh, that train, ghost story train through swamp and savannah, moving over trestles of dew, through caves of the wish. Midnight special on a saber track, moving. First stop, mercy, and the last, hallelujah. Come ride on my train. Mean, mean, mean to be free. That's a beautiful poem. The whole thing is in the play of the voices. And one thing that's interesting is we start getting dialect choices, the movering train, renegade, renegade. And the beautiful, like, language from different songs, sayings, first stop mercy and the last hallelujah. So putting together these different kinds of diction, these different voices, different kinds of voices. You've got the voice of the slave owner saying, if you see my Pompey, if you see my, return them to me. And then that list, which is supposed to sound like such a damning list, known to be consorting with Thoreau, Emerson, and all the rest of them, armed and known to be dangerous. So comments on this poem.
Question, when was it written, Anne?
What, Run Gate, Run Gate?
Yes.
Good question. Do you have any idea? His dates? Remind me what his dates are.
1913 to 1980.
1913,
Yeah.
1980. Yeah, I remember he stopped writing poetry for a long time. Um, oh no, I'm sorry. That's yeah, okay. I would I can't answer that.
That's it. Yeah.
I can't answer that. I'll try to find out. I can find out, but at the moment,
Yeah.
I don't need the
What
exact date, but I was just interested in where this was in history compared to emancipation and what was happening in terms of Black people in the South and so on.
you mean during the time that he wrote this poem?
Yeah.
I would imagine it's during the Civil Rights era.
So I just
No,
took,
Okay, Leslie
probably
just checked.
earlier.
Leslie just checked.
it's
Earlier.
1949 for the initial publication. It was new publication dates and collections in 62 and 66, collected in Angle of Ascent in 75, and included in the collected poems in 85. But it looks like the first publication was 19.
49.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
very dark time in the South.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, there've been a lot of dark times in the South. And thank you, Leslie. That's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
I think I like, we traditionally think of poetry as referring back to classical imagery or illusions and stuff like that. And he sort of brings that forward and brings spirituals and language in a more contemporary language. So it's no different, but he makes it really, uh, when you're using songs, they're always the words are so powerful.
Hmm.
And so when he brings that in, you just feel them.
Hmm.
It's very cinematic. It's all,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these images coming at you at once.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's true. There's a kind of synesthesia and overcrowding of panic-stricken images, and then bits of song, bits of memory, and then the wonderful evocation of Harriet Tubman with her gun. If
Yeah,
you
I'm
don't,
sorry
run,
that
I'm gonna shoot you.
Oh yeah.
I'm
No.
sorry Laurel's not here because she knows a lot about Quaker history, and there's a lot of tales about the Underground Railroad.
Yeah,
And there was just a thing I saw in the New York Times this week. I didn't read it. I got to go back and find it. But there's a house that was felt to be a way station,
oh yeah, yeah,
and you saw that, and they
yeah,
Yeah.
discovered a secret passage, a secret door that goes down into an area where they were able to shelter escaped slaves.
yeah. We saw a house like that in Nebraska once. It was really very, very wonderful to see.
I
Yeah,
think it's one of my favorite poems, actually, that we've read, just because of it touches on all the horror of slavery, but at the end, you've got this really positive feeling, especially because of Harriet Tubman and the hallelujah.
yeah,
And they mean to be free. So it's from sometimes I go on trips to places where I have family genealogy, and one of my grandmothers was raised in Maryland, near where Frederick Douglass was and all of that. And I went to a lot of sites there. So this just seems to me, I don't know, sort of personal.
yeah, yeah.
I have to dissent partly about this poem. To me, what's moving in it is the history,
Yeah.
and the history is moving. But I made the mistake of reading a fair number of Sterling Brown poems before this class, thinking it was going to be about Sterling Brown. And the way Brown does a black vernacular voice is so much, seems to me, so much more authentic and powerful, and essentially disturbing than what Hayden is doing, that it makes this poem pale by comparison, though not with regard to the history, but with regard to the rhetoric of the poem. Um, Anne told me I admire Stephen Vincent Benet's poem, John Brown's Body, quite a lot. It isn't great poetry, but it has quite a lot of impact, and he does the many different voices of all sorts of people caught up in the Civil War. But when he writes about the escaped slave, Cudjoe, however much sympathy he puts into it, he is at a distance from Cudjoe that he can't really cover. And I'm afraid I'd have to say that compared to Sterling Brown or compared to the best of blues and spirituals, Hayden is also at that roughly that distance, even though he's black, at least in this poem.
Yeah, we kind of disagree.
Yeah, well, I did read that. So I was teaching in a black ghetto school in 1968, actually. And I got called honky. I got told white people could not have any soul, all of that good stuff.
Mhm.
And I read that he was really criticized during that period that for not being black enough,
Yeah.
but I thought Robert Hayden, I mean, was probably all this time not trying to separate himself from being black, but separate himself from uneducated blackness. He was right. He was criticized for using European styles
Yes.
and
And for
language and stuff like that. So that might be true, but sometimes you can't win, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was criticized during the Black Arts movement for not identifying with the kind of Black is Beautiful, Black Power movement, because he said, I mean, as a member of the Baha'i faith, he identified with all people and all spiritual traditions. Yeah.
I think that's
Um,
I think that's really important because he didn't feel the need to be black, not white, with that angry edge, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, the idea that there's a right kind of black person kind of offends me. And I don't care whether it's black people or white people saying it. Every black person is an individual, just like every white person is an individual. And they have the right to be any individual they want. They don't have to be faithful to their color. There was a person during the 60s who was a professor. She was a black professor of something. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like anthropology. It wasn't a a racially relevant discipline. It may have been science. Let's say it was science. I don't remember what it was. And this question came up to her, and she said that every individual contributes to civil rights by being who they are and being fully who they are, not by and not by corresponding or uh, fitting into a stereotype that was made up by the Black Power movement. Not that I have anything against the Black Power movement. I probably have spent, I don't know, I don't want to judge, but I probably spent more time with black people than likely anybody on this list because, for one thing, I was raised by a black couple. My mother was an invalid, and my father was a very hardworking businessman. And basically, I was raised by our gardener and our maid. It's just like the antebellum South kind
Yeah.
of thing. And but I spent more time, literally spent more time with them than I did my own parents. That's one thing. And then the other thing was a lot of experience with black musicians, and particularly Junior Walker, where I was the only white guy. And it was just reinforced to me that, I mean, duh, this is just the most obvious thing in the world, but they're all completely individual people. And to say there's a right kind of black person is really offensive to me. And uh, I think he deserves to be any kind of black person he wants to be and any kind of black poet he wants to be.
Well, that's what the poetic community would say about him now. But during the, very militant Black Power movement stage or Black is Beautiful race affirming stage, he was considered to be not sufficiently um, subscribing to that movement. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I can understand that too, but give me a break. I mean, it's it's racist in itself to say that black people have to correspond to a certain stereotype of politics.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
agree with that completely, but what I was saying was something, more specific and
Yeah,
narrower.
I know you were
That is
talking about
the
the
voice wasn't
style.
the
Yeah,
voice wasn't convincing in the way that the voice in Brown's poems,
We'll get
or
there.
to give a very self-conscious, uh, partly black person, Gene Toomer's poems. Toomer
I
was a
was
very complicated, very individual person, and he eventually distanced himself from blackness because he was Welsh, German, French, Jewish, American Indian, and African. And he decided that that wasn't central to him anymore. But when, for the 5 years or so that included the writing of Cain, when he did a vernacular black voice, he did it authentically, though sometimes he was too insistent in what he did.
So
And
let's move on.
all I'm saying is that Hayden doesn't seem to me to do it with that same kind of immediacy.
Yeah, I got that. I
Yeah,
understood what you're saying, that it was a matter of style and representation. Uh, but
yeah,
what I was responding to is, I think it was Ann that said that he wasn't sufficiently black
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
some people in the movement, and I just find that offensive. Not to
no,
me.
right.
yeah,
So
no,
let's
but
do,
yeah,
go ahead, Neil. Go ahead.
no. I'm only going to say that I hear what Peter's saying, but I it may be that it wasn't that important to him to really he wasn't trying to reflect the vernacular that much. I think he was bringing it in, but I can see, he's not doing that. Um, but and so he's not trying to do it, but when you see another poet doing it very, very well, you say, I wonder about that, um, and so on.
Right. So
I,
let's
I one more comment before we move on.
go
I,
ahead.
I like what I like. I like this poem a lot, and one of the things I liked about it is it was a combination of a hopefulness that no more auction block for me, and so on. But even though there's that hopefulness and potential, there's a really strong memory and reality of running away
Mhm.
and the threat of that comes to a black person in this country. And I thought that the complexity of that it's hopeful, but the ghosts of the past are still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to say something about, thinking about the conversations we used to have at the time in the 60s with
Mhm.
ourselves, with each other, with black people. This idea of black militantism, it's kind of scary to take a stand and say, I'm a militant. I believe in this. And I think it's quite natural to react by saying, well, if you're not with me, you're against me, as a defensive mechanism, um, to support what's really a very scary and brave move you've made.
Hmm. Let's go. I want to look at three more poems before we stop. And I think we'll probably be able to finish talking about Hayden today and then move on to Sterling A. Brown. So I want to look at Frederick Douglass, which is, I'm going to read it to you. Let's see,
Okay.
scan on down. Here we go. Okay. Frederick Douglass. When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, needful to man as air, usable as earth, when it belongs at last to all, when it is truly instinct, brain matter, diastole, systole, reflex action, when it is finally one, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo jumbo of politicians, this man, this Douglas, this former slave, this Negro beaten to his knees, exiled, visioning a world where none is lonely, none hunted, alien. This man, superb in love and logic, this man shall be remembered. Oh, not with statues, rhetoric, not with legends and poems and wreaths of bronze alone, but with the lives grown out of his life, the lives fleshing his dream of the beautiful, needful thing. Beautiful poem. It's got the shape of a sonnet, the length of a sonnet. The lines are much longer than the lines of a sonnet. When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing. So it's like a sonnet that's spilling over its banks.
Hmm.
Notice the degree of repetition, which I think is so brilliantly used here. When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, when it belongs at last to all, when it is truly instinct, when it is finally one, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo jumbo of politicians, all those whens. And then the colon, full stop, this man, this Douglas, more repetition, this, where none is lonely, none hunted. You know, I mean, it's got a tremendous number of commas for one thing in this poem because all the different phrases are, it's like they're blocks piling up upon one another. When this happens, when this happens, when this happens, and then this man, this man, this man, this is who he was, this Douglas, this former slave, this Negro beaten to his knees, exiled, visioning a world where none is lonely, none hunted, alien. This man shall be remembered. Finally, a period. Yeah, Leslie?
What that reminds me of is the cadences of Black preachers, even,
Yeah,
Martin Luther King Jr. That is the way the power is built up, I
yeah,
think. A lot
yeah,
of
a lot
times
of,
it's through that rhythmical repeating of the phrase.
yeah,
It's not statues rhetoric. I love that phrase.
yeah, yeah.
It's statues rhetoric. It's the rhetoric of a preacher.
Yeah, absolutely. That's nice. Yeah. Um, yeah, with the lives grown out of his life, the lives, the lives, the life, the lives, fleshing his dream of the beautiful, needful thing. It's gone from this beautiful and terrible thing, needful, to man as air. So it turns around on itself to repeat. So, I mean, yeah, talking about rhetoric, I mean, this is a masterpiece of rhetoric. This is a masterpiece of praise, you know, and there's so much hope and so much determination and so much not just admiration, but kind of awe for this person who was able, not to give up. And I love the phrase too, the gaudy mumbo jumbo of politicians, you know. It's not just that people spewing about what they don't really mean. But when freedom is finally attained, and there's such a hope and such a wish there, because it hasn't been. It's a dream. It's a work, it's a labor, it's a hope, it's a dedication, but it's not yet a fact. And then it ends so simply with the lives grown out of his life, the lives, you know, the children, the people who finally get to enjoy that freedom, even if they never
Um,
heard Frederick Douglass.
do you, Anne, do you know of, or anybody, another poet that uses diastole and systole like that? I mean, I associate it with Goethe, but I've never seen another poet use those words.
Yeah, I think referring to the heartbeat, huh?
It's the heartbeat, not
No,
the, no,
yeah.
it's not the trope from Greek drama. It's the heartbeat.
No,
Hmm.
I thought that was such a wonderful image. It's like it's innate.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
in you. Yeah, it's reflexes.
Yeah.
It's your yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's not
I
just
love those. Yeah.
me too. It's not just painted on. It's not just like a costume that you wear. It's so true for your experience that it's part of your bloodstream, part of your heartbeat, part of your brain, the way you think, the way you react, you know?
It's interesting that we're reading this poem on the day that Jesse Jackson died.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was touched by the image that they had in the news this morning of Jackson crying at Obama's inauguration, the tear going down his face. I mean, it was a beautiful image.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest political mistakes I ever made was to be for Michael Dukakis in 1988 rather than Jesse Jackson.
Yeah.
We forgive you.
Well, I thought he was going to win, and he wasn't a bad guy either, but I was a mistake to support him just because I thought he was going to win.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
So let's go on, and I want to read a poem that when I first read it scared the bejesus out of me.
Oh my goodness.
Keep
This
going.
one?
No,
Not
Keep
Douglas.
going.
keep going.
Which one is it?
Keep going.
Okay.
Ballad Nat Turner.
No, keep going.
Okay.
This is one where he's got the voices just right.
Oh,
Night,
the lynching, night, death in Mississippi, Mississippi.
night, death, Mississippi. I first read this in the Norton Anthology of Modern Poetry when I was studying for my PhD exams. And I was like, oh my God, I had to read it over and over to make sure that I was seeing what I was seeing. And I'm going to try to do the voices because having lived in Mississippi for so long, I can kind of do them. Night, death, Mississippi. One, a quavering cry. Screech owl, or one of them. The old man in his reek and gauntness laughs. One of them, I bet. And turns out the kitchen lamp, limping to the porch to listen in the windowless night. Be there with boy and the rest if I was well again. Time was. Time was. What robes like moonlight in the sweet gum dark. Unbuck that one then and him squealing bloody Jesus as we cut it off. Time was. A cry? A cry, all right. He hawks and spits, fevered as if by grain fire. Have us a bottle, boy me. He's earned him a bottle when he gets home. Two. Then we beat them, he said. Beat them till our arms was tired and the big old chains messy and red. Oh, Jesus, burning on the lily cross. Christ, it was better than hunting bear, which don't know why you want him dead. Oh, night, raw head and bloody bones night. You kids fetch Pa some water now so he can wash that blood off him, she said. Oh, night, betrayed by darkness, not its own.
This
That was,
reminds
I swore I'd never live in Mississippi.
this reminds me, you know, the song Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
okay. I I have always been struck by this. Now, I don't really know that much about the Holocaust, But I do know that lynchings in the South, this is what happened. People got drunk and celebrated when they
Yeah,
hung a black guy. They witnessed it and it was a party. I
yeah,
don't think that happened in Germany. I don't know but the public didn't celebrate the deaths of these people. In fact, a lot of times they didn't know about them. Whereas this was public for us. We knew about it,
yeah. It's
and
public.
it was a party.
It happened on Kristallnacht in 1938. That was a celebration, and
Yeah,
Jews were beaten or killed, and windows were broken. But
that's right.
later on, the death camps were hidden as far as they could be hidden. And the best authority I found on this is Walter Lacour in a book called The Terrible Secret. He said in the year 1942, Germans didn't know about the extermination camps unless they were working in them or knew someone or were related to someone working in them. By 1943, basically everybody knew, you
Was
know,
that right?
well, that's just his position. It's a contentious issue, but that at a certain point they became widely known in Germany and would have become widely known in the West were it not that so many people refused to believe, what seemed like wildly exaggerated atrocity stories. So
Well,
it's complicated, but the celebratory aspect was there. It just
we're
was,
not, I'm sorry.
well, it wasn't entrenched in a culture over a period of 150 years. So there is that difference.
Well, it's that out of sight, out of mind thing. I mean, right now stuff is happening to immigrants that
Yeah,
are the equivalent, maybe not the equivalent. We don't have executions yet, but people are being imprisoned without due process.
sure.
And, but it's out of sight. You don't see it. Whereas the lynchings were like public
Yeah,
a
they were.
picnic.
They
They were.
were.
They were.
But
Well,
it was intentional.
Yeah,
That was the point.
yeah,
That was the point
yeah.
to separate, you know, the white folk on one side. I mean, hell, they had photos. They put them in the front page of the newspapers.
They
yeah.
made postcards.
They
Post-
made postcards.
Mhm.
But the whole point was to augment the terror, which is sort of like the crystal knot. Kind of the public um, terror to just to frighten everybody,
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I think
we don't want them to get uppity. We don't want any of that.
well, I
yeah.
think that ISIS, the
It
is very visible, and I think it's the
Yeah,
same kind of terror.
is.
yeah,
And there,
yeah.
you can see people, at least in social media, seem to delight in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And the thing is,
Whoa.
lynchings in every state. It's not just in the South.
No, there weren't in New England. Tuskegee kept track of them for about 70 years. And I am not saying New England is all that virtuous. There's plenty of racism in New England, but the attitude toward law and order was different. And there apparently were no lynchings in New England, though there were in New York and New Jersey and the Midwest and
California and
the
Oregon.
West. Yeah.
West, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lynching, a commemorative sign
Mhm.
in Oxford, which probably Neil saw when he was here. It's new, but the lynching happened when back in the 30s, I think.
There were, I think, 8 lynchings, about five of them in the 1890s, which was probably the worst decade. One of them when Faulkner was a boy, and I think it's the germ of his story, Dry September, which is about a lynching occurs when there was no crime at all, but the black man is suspected of a crime. And the last one was in 1936 and is similar to what happens in the Sterling Brown poem, He Was a Man, because this was a black farmer whose land the white farmer wanted. And the white farmer came there armed, and there was some kind of a showdown, and the black man killed the white man, probably in self-defense, and was then
Yeah.
lynched.
If y'all ever have a chance to go to Jackson, Mississippi, to the Civil Rights Museum, it's absolutely overwhelming and really, really moving.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just lost it at that museum. The
Yeah.
guard had to comfort me. And I was like, you shouldn't be having to comfort me. You're a black man and I'm a white woman. But I was just sobbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just a really powerful poem. And I mean, he's got the voice just down, just right in this poem. The voice is the old guy who just wishes that he was young enough to go out there and have some fun again. And the son, it was better than Honey Bear, which you don't know why you want him dead. And then Mama, the font of all kindness. You kids fetch Pa some water now so he can wish that blood off him.
Oh,
Nice and
Yeah.
clean when he sits down to the dinner table, you know.
Yeah. I'm not gonna have that stuff all over my dinner table. You know.
oh
Absolutely
my
terrifying.
Yeah.
God.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It's a
Whoa.
powerful poem, but
Yeah.
notice that the voices are the voices of white racists.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and that's fine. That's what this poem requires.
Yeah. But then also his voice is Jesus burning on the lily cross.
That's a quotation from a spiritual.
Anyway, let's go down.
Yeah.
Let's go down more. Even more. And I want to end with the night blooming Sirius and the one that follows it. So this is a kind of cactus, as you know, that blooms once a year, and it blooms at night, generally between 9 and 10 p.m. And then the bloom has faded by morning. So I mentioned that Robert Hayden writes a lot about history. He writes a lot about race and racial history, but he also writes about art and about the natural world. And this is a poem about the natural world, kind of miracle, the night blooming Sirius. And so for nights we waited, hoping to see the heavy bud break into flower. On its neck-like tube, hooking down from the edge of the leaf branch nearly to the floor, the bud packed tight with its miracle swayed stiffly on breaths of air, moved as though impelled by stirrings within itself. It repelled as much as it fascinated me, sometimes snake-like, eyeless bird head, beak that would gape with grotesque life squawk. But you, my dear, conceded less to the bizarre than to the imminence of bloom. Yet we agreed we ought to celebrate the blossom, paint ourselves, dance in honor of archaic mysteries when it appeared. Meanwhile, we waited, aware of rigorous design. Baxter's polygraph, I thought, would have shown as clearly as it had a philodendron's fear, tribal sentience in the cactus, focused energy of will, the belling of tropic perfume, that signaling not meant for us, the darkness cloying with summoning fragrance. We dropped trivial tasks and marveling beheld at last the achieved flower. Its moonlight petals were still unfolding, the spike fringe of the outer perianth recessing as we watched. Lunar presence, foredoomed, already dying. It charged the room with plangency older than humans' cries, ancient as prayers invoking Osiris, Krishna, Tezcatlipoca. We spoke in whispers when we spoke at all. It's pretty magical, huh?
I had a fairly personal connection to this poem. I attended Punahou School in Hawaii. School was founded in 1841 on a site which the missionaries had built up earlier, and in 1836 had built a wall and put night blooming cereus on the wall.
Really?
And that cereus has been maintained ever since. People come in the night to 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 look at the blossoms. They come a few months later to gather the fruit, which is the result of the blossoming. In 1941, when the army took over Punahou School and chased everybody away, and tried to erect a barbed wire fence on top of the stone wall. And there was a great outcry.
I bet.
And the army was forced to replant the portions of the Sirius that had been damaged.
Wow.
And the plant itself, in its continuance, is part of the seal of Punahou School. Punahou means new spring, and the spring is part of the background, but the Sirius is it's not a plant native to Hawaii at all. But it's so I found this particularly moving
I
myself.
bet. So is it just one plant?
It's a I don't know. I don't think it's one plant. I think it's in sections. There's different roots, but when they tore off part of it, it didn't ruin the rest. Though there was some worry about it. It is a fairly delicate plant.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful. How beautiful. Yeah.
If it's a large plant that would cover a wall, would there be more than one blossom? And if so, do they blossom on the same day?
I can't tell you whether they blossom the same day, but they blossom more or less at the same time of year.
Mhm.
And it is in the night.
Yeah.
And the blossoms are well faded by the time the sun rises the next morning.
Mhm.
And I never was there when I never went out to catch the blossoms
Yeah.
in their finest odor. But I had classmates who did. Um, I was more interested in astronomy myself,
Oh, yeah.
but it's a very moving connection to the school.
That's really nice. That's beautiful. So comments on this poem besides Brian's, which takes the cake as far as a cool comment.
So it's interesting when we've seen the poems that they've had varying lengths, and yet this poem is mimicking that long stalk. When you see how to see how tightly
Mhm.
measured all the it's just a wonderful poem, but it's not, no long lines. It's all a long stalk that leads to the flower.
Hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. And to me, it reminds me of D.H. Lawrence, actually, with the turn toward the end to the ancient cultures, that this blooming flower, this cactus, as it blooms, it's so mysterious and it's evoking these much earlier, spiritual traditions and gods, Osiris, Krishna, Texla, whatever, Texla, tech, scoot down a little bit so I can read the word. Texcatlipoca, yeah, Aztec.
In Lawrence's first novel, there's a scene when several characters see the snowdrops, the first flowers blooming in the spring, and a character named Emily, I think, says that they seem to her to belong to some ancient religion, something we have lost. And the narrator says, it's against my creed to believe that. And she says, I feel I've lost something.
Hmm. But here it's like they're finding this. And one
Well,
thing I like about this poem too is it's a love poem. It's something that he and his beloved do together is watch this and they become more and more quiet as the hours pass. We spoke in whispers when we spoke at all. It's like they drop their chores like washing the dishes or whatever, or sweeping the kitchen, and they just are fixated on this poem, on this flower as it gets ready to bloom. It's quite mysterious and it's happening in the darkness, this lunar flower. Yeah. And then I wanted to end with what I think is just such a beautiful poem, Monet's Water Lilies. Today, as the news from Selma and Saigon poisons the air like fallout, I come again to see the serene, great picture that I love. Here, space and time exist in light. The eye, like the eye of faith, believes. The seen, the known, dissolve in iridescence, become elusive flesh of light that was not, was. forever is. O light beheld as through refracting tears. Here is the aura of that world. Here is the shadow of its joy. Let's see, Tony, scroll up just a little bit. Yeah, so we've got 4, 6, 4 again, the length of a sonnet, but broken up differently. And if you've seen Monet's water lilies or been to Giverny to see his gardens with the lilies and the water. I mean, it's such a beautiful tribute to art, to the way art can bring the shadow of its joy, the aura of the lost world, even in the time of great trouble. And I love the paradox, light that was not was forever is, you know. A lot of people these days are thinking about like what can art do in the midst of these absolutely terrible times? What can it mean? What can it offer? How can it respond? And this is, one response. So let's go away from screen sharing so that everybody can have their big face showing again. Great. Hi, big faces. Um, so any final comments on Robert Hayden?
I was disappointed that I had never heard of him before and never had read him. It seems to me that there's much here that's central to how we need to understand things,
Yes,
and it's wonderfully expressed, I think.
I agree.
It was curious to me that he had studied with Auden,
Hmm.
Oh,
which is
Yes.
such a different voice. But Auden is a poet of many voices.
Yeah, and Auden really championed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, when we were in college and when I was in grad school, I mean, I first encountered Robert Hayden, as I said, in the Norton Anthology of Modern Poetry as I was studying for my PhD exams, which means that I didn't encounter him in classes, although I took poetry classes all the way through college and grad school. But nor did I encounter women writers, you know. So it gives us a lot to think about because yes, absolutely. He and poets like him. Um, Sterling A. Brown, Peter mentioned Jean Toomer, Langston Hughes, Gwendolyn Brooks. We're not reading Gwendolyn Brooks, but she's also super important for this era. Our part of how we need to understand our history, our country, our lives. Yeah.
and did you teach Robert Hayden and maybe the next poet we're going to talk about when you were teaching in Mississippi?
Yeah.
And how did that work out?
Fine. That's fine. I remember teaching. Yeah, I did. Now I'm trying to remember. Trying to remember if I taught him an undergrad or only grad level. But yes, I did. Because I once taught a class that was really fun to teach. It was 3 semesters long, and it was like sort of like American poetry from, mid 19th century up to the present time. And I divided it. There's a lot of sort of mid 20th century poets who don't get read as often anymore, and they are wonderful. So we're going to be reading, like Elizabeth Bishop and Robert Lowell. But there's also Theodore Retke and James Wright and so many people writing in the middle of the century. The people who were so influenced by Eliot, some of whose poetry, Alan Tate, Robert Penn Warren, Blackmer, and so on, is it's really wonderful poetry. But it's just Richard Wilbur, but it's just a tides just sweep over and carry some people out to sea, and then they're not really heard from anymore or till much later. Yeah. But yeah, I did. I did. Mississippi, University of Mississippi. Well, it depends from department to department. The English department and the humanities departments have been really, really scrupulous about um, articulating things having to do with race. And we've got the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, which is so important in doing research, archival research, anthropological research, archaeological research, you know, into so much about race history in Mississippi. Now, just now, the state legislature has voted to make, quote, the barn into let's see, what is it? It's going to be a national site or a state site anyway. That's the barn in which Emmett Till was murdered.
Mm.
And so that's going to be, uh, kind of like a shrine.
So do
It
you get your
sounds,
feathers cut?
What did you say?
Oh, Tony, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that uh, ha hasn't the advances of the new regime in Washington suppressed some of that stuff, or you haven't experienced
Yeah.
that, or what?
Yeah. So for instance, the signs at um Medgar Evers's house are not allowed to say that the guy who shot him was a racist. That's a new decision.
Maybe people can figure that out for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's interesting about the barn because the Mississippi legislators are not exactly you know it's a very conservative legislature,
Mhm.
and yet they still recognize history because it's not it's definitely a black minority representation or even Democratic representation.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, but it's about 30 odd percent of the vote.
yeah, oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the people in power, whom I have a low opinion of, do not want to be seen as justifying murder.
No.
yeah,
They
yeah,
may do it, but they don't want to be seen that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
one side of the story. The other side of the story is that Maud Schuyler Clay, who did the book Mississippi with me, her son-in-law is the head of the Emmett Till Museum, and they put up a commemorative sign next to the part of the river where his body was found. And that sign was bullet ridden time and time and time again. They had to put up new sign after new sign after new sign because, people would come joyriding and just go shoot it full of holes. And now they finally put up a bulletproof sign. So, I mean, those are the two sides of the story. Those are the two sides of the story. It's like one step forward, one step back, or one step forward, two steps back. I mean, it's just a really vexed history in this state to this day. Ross Barnett Reservoir is right outside the city of Jackson, and Ross Barnett was like one of the truly racist governors. So there's all kinds of crap, you know. But
No,
we still
well,
invite you guys
you're
to come on down, see
well,
some.
you're on the front lines, Ann, and more power to you.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. Um,
Oxford isn't really the front lines, though.
Well, that's okay. Fair
Well,
enough.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, no, no. What people I learned soon when I got there is don't confuse Oxford with the rest of Mississippi.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, when we first lived here, you could go a mile outside town and see places that didn't have running water.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty heavy.
I'm
But you guys
not
should
interested.
still,
Thank you.
you guys
Yeah.
should still come visit, seriously,
Yeah.
especially if you're interested in food or music or folk art or swamps or ticks or, you know,
Fire ants?
good stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, you got to go to Thacker Mountain, you know.
And Neil, I'm sorry we made you miss Thacker Mountain.
No, 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 no. A much better experience. But yeah, I always loved it. Thacker Mountain is this 1 hour radio show. It's held at a book. Well, it used to be in the bookstore. I always had a book, an author. Authors come to Oxford, and always had music. So you never knew what you're going to get, but it was all worth. Well, it's 1 hour long. It's all worth it going to.
Yeah,
So
and it's broadcast as far away as New Mexico now.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hitting the big time. Thacker Mountain.
There you go.
I had a question about that hamburger you all were eating last week. Did it have mustard on it?
Did it have, it didn't, did it? Yeah, it
I
did.
don't. Yeah.
Not
They
very
It should
much.
have mustard. That's
Yeah,
the
not
thing
very
about
much.
the South. They know to put mustard on their hamburgers.
It had
Do
some, a
that in
little
the
bit.
West too, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
gotta
Not
tell you,
always. Not at In-N-Out unless you ask for it.
I was a little embarrassed that they were too salty. And I felt bad having bragged to Neil that it was the best burger in Oxford.
It was
But
really good.
it was really good. And to the sweet waiter, when I was done, I said, I love this place, but this time my burger was too salty. And he goes, Oh, I'm really sorry. We'll get it comped. So they took
You did.
$25 off the check.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, totally nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So make your reservations. Come on down. Come on.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
friends who were from the north like us. And when the woman first lived here, she went to the bank and she did her stuff, and then she was leaving and the teller goes, Y'all come back now. And she turns, she goes, Oh, okay, what? Anyway,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
The
All
big
right.
couple days.
Bye.
Yeah.
Y'all come back now.
There you go. Yeah.